The house wasn't supposed to survive. In the spring of 1976, workers had prepared to erase this piece of Alberta history. The weathered farmhouse with its round turret, a wraparound veranda, and windows staring out across the prairie like watchful eyes stood across the Red Deer River for more than 60 years. It had seen harsh winters, dust storms, prosperity, grief, and generations of one family living beneath its roof. The house had been saved at the last minute and moved brick by brick to a new home, where it still stands today as one of the area's most recognizable buildings. It is a perfect place for meetings, retreats, parties, weddings, and teas. But it also has a darker side, and it has earned a reputation as one of Central Alberta's most talked about haunted locations.
I turn and I put my back to the camera and I start walking towards the cold spot, or what I feel to be cold. And behind me, all of a sudden the cat ball lights up and starts rolling towards me. It's following me now. And then all of a sudden I hear bang, 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 thump, thump, thump.
I'm Nadine Bailey, and this is Haunted Canada. Today, I'm joined by Thomas Martell, the lead investigator of the Spirit Seekers Paranormal Unit, as he takes us inside one of Alberta's most unsettling heritage houses. This is Cronquist House. Long before Europeans set foot on the land, the Siksikaisatapi, the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Plains Cree, the Stoney Nakoda made the river valley home as they gathered, hunted, and lived in deep connection along the waterway. The Cree called it Waskasiu Sipi, which translates to Elk River. They were later joined by the Métis. By then, British traders thought the elk they encountered were European red deer. The name stuck, and the river and the town that grew beside it became Red Deer. The Indigenous people who named the area and had lived there for generations now watched as settlers arrived, homesteads went up, and access to the land were taken from them. Thomas Martell, a youth mentor with Red Deer Native Friendship Society, an Indigenous nonprofit charitable organization that has been helping families, youth, elders, and children connect to their cultural values and traditional teachings since 1984. He is also lead investigator of the Spirit Seekers Paranormal Unit, and he says the land where Cronquist House now stands has its own dark history. Long before the stories of footsteps in empty hallways and unseen presences on the staircase, the land where Cronquist House stands was defined by industry. At the turn of the 20th century, the north bank of the Red Deer River echoed with the sound of saws and steam engines. The Great West Lumber Company established a large sawmill in 1906, transforming the river valley into one of the region's most important industrial sites. To support the operation, workers dredged a broad stretch of flat ground beside the mill, creating what became known as the mill pond. The pond served a practical purpose because it was a place to store and manage the logs arriving for processing into lumber, and turned a quiet bend of the river into a bustling center of commerce. Hundreds of men worked the operation through freezing winters, moving logs down from the foothills near Sundre, guiding them along the water into the mill. It was hard, dangerous work in an unforgiving climate. Then, in June 1915, a massive flood tore through and destroyed the mill pond. The following year, the Great West Lumber Mill closed forever. Across the water, the prairie was still being settled by families like the Cronquists. Emanuel Cronquist had arrived in central Alberta from Sweden, determined to build a future from the rich farmland overlooking the valley. By 1912, his grand farmhouse stood on a rise above the river, its turrets visible for miles. From its windows, the family could look north and see the activity of the lumber operation, the smoke drifting from the mill stacks, the movement of workers along the shoreline, and the still waters of the mill pond reflecting the Alberta sky. For years, the rhythm of the farm and industry existed side by side. The mill brought growth and opportunity to Red Deer, while the Cronquist farm prospered on the fertile land surrounding it. Yet, as decades passed, the sounds of industry faded. In the 1930s, another mill opened on the same site. Then, in 1941, that one burned to the ground, and nature slowly reclaimed the shoreline. The site fell into disuse, and part of the area became a garbage dump. A gravel pit was dug in 1946. The mill pond remained, eventually becoming part of the landscape now known as Bower Ponds. Today, visitors strolling through the park see tranquil water, walking paths, and the stately Cronquist House standing nearby. Few realize they are walking through a landscape shaped by both pioneer ambition and industrial enterprise. A fewer still know that after dark, when the wind moves through the trees and the old house settles into silence, some believe the past is not entirely gone. Because in places where history runs deep, where immigrants built homes, where mills once roared beside the river, and where generations lived and died beneath the same roof, Thomas says the boundary between the memory and the legend can begin to blur.
The land itself has a very rich history, and then you move that house in to the same place. So many things have happened in and around Red Deer in this river valley. Very, very rich history. So I always explain that, and we talk about that with the youth, that it's not only the house, it's not only the bricks and the mortar, but as you approach the house, and it's the area around the home, that carries so much energy with it. So we don't just focus on the history of the home.
Emanuel Peterson Cronquist was born on April 10, 1854. By the 1880s, he had established himself as a merchant and married Hilda Karlstadt. Like thousands of other Scandinavians, he looked westward towards the promised land and opportunity. In 1892, Emanuel made the difficult journey alone to Western Canada to see whether the stories were true. What he found convinced him to return. The following year, he brought his family to Alberta to begin a new life. The journey was devastating. As the family crossed the Atlantic and traveled towards their new home on the Canadian frontier, 2 of their young sons died. By the time the Cronquists reached central Alberta in 1893, they arrived carrying not only their belongings, but also profound grief. But they didn't have time to mourn. Survival demanded action. The family settled west of Red Deer and began the exhausting work of building a farm from raw prairie. Their first home was little more than a log structure with a sod roof. It was in stark contrast to the prosperous life they would eventually create. Over time, Emanuel proved to be exceptionally ambitious. He was more than a farmer. He traded livestock, dealt in horses and cattle, acquired land, and developed a reputation as a shrewd businessman. He also helped other Swedish immigrants and became part of a growing Scandinavian community that was transforming the region. When confusion arose because several families shared the last name Peterson, Emanuel adopted the last name Cronquist. It was a decision that would eventually become synonymous with one of Red Deer's most recognizable historic landmarks. In 1901, the Cronquists purchased land overlooking the Red Deer River and their farm expanded steadily until it encompassed nearly 800 acres. He eventually became one of the district's most successful farmers and businessmen, and he wanted a home that reflected him. Around 1911, he began construction of an extraordinary new home on a hill above the river valley. Unlike most prairie farmhouses, it was built of brick and local sandstone. The house was positioned deliberately near the old Calgary-Edmonton Trail and high above the river so travelers could see it from a great distance. Then, a towering round turret rose above the roofline as a statement, not merely as wealth, but of arrival. In less than 2 decades, the family that arrived under the weight of grief had risen to have one of the grandest rural homes in the district. From the veranda, Emanuel could look across the valley and watch a changing Alberta. The Great West Lumber Company sawmill operated on the north side of the river. The mill pond glimmered below. Homesteads spread across the countryside. The frontier that had greeted him in 1893 was becoming a thriving agricultural region. The house Emanuel built was extraordinary, a 3-story brick home made up of 3,500 square feet in a Victorian Queen Anne Revival style. It has 8 bedrooms, a dining room, a parlor, and a kitchen built for a family that knew how to work.
Emanuel was the man who actually built this house with his bare hands. He built this house for his family. He had a really large family. And so fast forward, I guess we'll move to after Hilda and Emanuel are passed away and some of their children lived in their house. The house was moved from what was West Park in Red Deer, and it was moved because nobody wanted to see this beautiful home be torn down. So they moved it to where it currently sits at Bower Ponds. It's stayed there ever since, and it's become a heritage site in the city of Red Deer.
After years of building his fortune, Emanuel died in September 1924 at the age of 70. His family remained in the home, and members of the Cronquist family continued living there until Elias, the last surviving child of Emanuel and Hilda Cronquist, passed away in June 1974. Developers had acquired the 1,000 acres of Cronquist land and planned to tear the house down and build a subdivision. Instead, the Red Deer Folk Festival Society rallied the community in 1976 to save the house by moving it brick by brick across the river to its new home at Bowers Pond. The original woodwork was carefully preserved. The house was given a new basement, new wiring, and new plumbing. It was placed at the edge of the ponds, looking out over the water in the middle of a park that sits on land where mills once burned. In 1983, Cronquist House became the first designated municipal historic resource in Alberta, a landmark, a symbol of heritage preservation, a place where history comes alive.
It is. It's really beautiful. And once you're inside, you really see that craftsmanship come alive. And it's one of those places where you can see all the modern things that you see in the house will start to dissolve. And you can see the house come alive from the time that it was built and lived in. You know, you can see the little children running up and down the stairs. You can see people cooking in the kitchen or maybe sitting at the dining room. You can really visualize that with how it's set up currently, but also just the craftsmanship. There is definitely a residual energy that has been left there by Emanuel, Hilda, and their family, without a doubt.
Thomas is a lead investigator of Spirit Seekers Paranormal Unit, and he brings his cultural knowledge about the spirit world and the importance of approaching it with respect and kindness. For years, former employees at Cronquist House had claimed the former home was haunted. Thomas combined his passion for mentoring youths and paranormal investigations and has led groups 4 different times through the house. each time they left with a story to tell.
We have not left with nothing. Each and every single time we go there, we capture something. We got EMF readers, we got a spirit box. The big one for me that I wanted to make sure we had was cameras, microphones, things of that nature. We did use sound sources. We got little cat balls, that light up when you touch them. They just kind of lay dormant until they're touched and then they light up. Those are quite interesting. We use all kinds of things, flashlights, we use teddy bears, all kinds of things. And then, of course, the biggest resource was the youth themselves, bringing the youth themselves in to be able to utilize this equipment, to learn how to use it, and to bring their own energy with them.
The first investigation produced results almost immediately.
Well, one of our investigators was sitting out on the front porch doing some EVP, electronic voice phenomenon. So they were just recording conversations. And of course, it wasn't until after, when we were reviewing, that we heard they were asking, can you tell us your name? Are you from here? How old are you? Those kinds of questions. And it was an older man voice come through, and these were two women investigators that were sitting on the porch talking. An older man's voice came through. It was not a friendly voice. It was the profanity came through. You're an a-hole. It's what came through, and it was pretty clear, actually. And maybe that could have been one of the Cronquist family. Maybe they were angry that we were at the house, or that the house had been moved. That often can create some, I guess, ruffle some feathers with spirit and with energy when you move things.
Thomas's theory is that whoever they encountered that first night was unhappy that the home had been moved to a new location. Thankfully, every room is still saturated with the traces of a remarkable life. The grief of losing children during the voyage to Canada, the struggle of carving a farm from wilderness, the ambition that built an empire of land and livestock, and the pride that raised a mansion above the river. When visitors step into the Cronquist House today, they are entering more than a historic building. They are stepping into the legacy of a man who crossed an ocean, buried 2 sons, built a fortune on the prairie, and then left behind a house so unforgettable that an entire city refused to let it die. It's something Thomas keeps in mind whenever he's doing an investigation in the house. As I mentioned, he's done many, and always leaves with new evidence that something is still present in the house because, for decades, stories have circulated among staff, volunteers, paranormal investigators, and curious visitors. One of the most common reports involves footsteps. Witnesses have described hearing the unmistakable sound of someone walking across the second floor when no one else was believed to be in the building. The footsteps are often described as slow and deliberate, moving from room to room above the main staircase. Several people have reportedly climbed the stairs expecting to find another visitor, only to discover the upper floor completely empty. Others speak of doors that refuse to behave normally. Interior doors have allegedly swung open without warning or slowly closed on their own. In some accounts, staff members returned to rooms they had just secured only to find doors standing open once again. Skeptics point to drafts and the natural setting of a century-old structure, but for those who experienced the events firsthand, the timing felt unsettling. It's something to keep in mind if you're ever in town and looking for a traditional tea service. Today, you can sit in one of the home's Victorian rooms, have a scone with Devonshire cream, and look out over the ponds. You can also walk around the grounds and the surrounding park.
I can share with you, just the other day, I was down there. We walked, me and a friend of mine, we were walking dogs. The sun had set. And I thought, I'm just going to grab a couple of pictures. Because you never know with photos, when you examine them afterwards, what am I really seeing in that window, right? And I got some orbs, some really nice bright orbs, bright green orbs that were up beside the house. It was pretty beautiful. And I didn't see them while I was sitting there looking at the home.
For the youth that accompany Thomas on his investigations, they feel things inside the house that didn't require equipment.
What I've had happen with some of the youth is they start to not feel too good. Some of them have felt what they describe as pressure on their head. And so when we start to hear that, that's when we've got, okay, we need to remove you from this space. We usually do some smudging. We do some things with sage. And so we make sure that the youth leave everything there before they leave. We don't just let them run home. We brush them off and we send them home clean. Clean minds, clean bodies, and clean spirits before they go.
Thomas makes sure that anyone who goes into an investigation with him is taken care of because he knows once inside the house, there are things that are hard to explain.
In a couple of the empty rooms, one was in the attic, they're infrared cameras, so it's completely dark up there, but the camera can see. And all of a sudden, the camera went dark. You can see the darkness creep into the room. And when the light is restored, it's really bright. A really bright light, just illuminates the room. And you hear a loud squeal. And then it goes normal again, which is interesting. So this is in the attic. At the very same time, our camera in the basement hears a man's voice. And I still, to this day, I've listened to it 1,000 times. I cannot make out the words that he's saying. I've tried and I've written down, I'll bet you hundreds of words, and it just, none of it makes sense. Maybe I just don't have an ear for that, but it's at the same time. This is while the paranormal team is on the main floor of the house and we're taking a break, having a snack, that kind of a thing. So yeah, we had activity in the top and the bottom while we were in the main floor, which was kind of interesting.
Visitors have occasionally described a sudden sensation of being watched while standing alone in the upstairs bedrooms. A handful of witnesses have claimed to seeing fleeting shadows moving through the hallways or crossing doorways. These figures are never clearly visible. They appear only for an instant, just long enough to make a person question what they saw. It's part of the reason why Thomas keeps coming back, and why he often encourages those he brings with him to never be alone. It's advice he forgot during his second investigation when he went down to the basement on his own.
I stood against the wall because I felt a really cold spot in the basement. And I thought, maybe is this coming from the wall or a window? Is there a draft over here? So I just stood there. I had no equipment with me. And then I thought, I think I can feel this cold spot moving away from me. So I'm going to follow it, and this could have been just me. Maybe I wasn't feeling anything. I don't know. But I thought I'd follow my gut instinct on this. So I turn, and there's a camera on me the whole time I'm in this room. So they're watching me from upstairs. So I turn and I put my back to the camera and I start walking towards the cold spot, or what I feel to be cold. And behind me, all of a sudden the cat ball lights up and starts rolling towards me. It's following me now. And then all of a sudden I hear bang, 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 thump, thump, thump. A couple of kids come running down the stairs and they're like, "Did you see that?" And which I hadn't, because it was behind me. Actually hearing them come trampling down the stairs scared the crap out of me, to be honest with you. So it was kind of interesting. That one I don't know what happened there. I don't know. I can't explain that.
Thomas has watched the footage many times and still doesn't have one. But he knows that visitors have occasionally described a feeling of an unexpected chill or an overwhelming awareness that someone is nearby, even when the room is empty. Some have said the sensation disappears the moment they leave the area. But the moment that Thomas remembers the most happened in the dining room.
And we had a teddy bear set up on the center table with a flashlight. And the flashlight was just laying on the table on and pointing in one direction. So one of the investigators had a cell phone pointing at the table. Now we were kind of in a starting phase, but we were getting things rolling. And the question, it was me who was doing the talking. And I said, if you'd like for us to leave, turn the flashlight off. If you want us to stay, just leave the light on. I thought, well, that's probably a pretty safe question. The light's probably going to stay on. And I have not seen this before in my life, Nadine. The illumination from the flashlight went from bright to it was dimming. Dim, almost off, and then it came back again. And everybody saw it. Everybody was sitting there, and there was a gasp throughout the room. And 3 times in a row, I asked the question, and that flashlight went dim and then re-illuminated again. So because I asked the question, and because we have to, be honest and be full of integrity, we packed up and we left that night. I asked the question, if you'd like us to go, turn that light off. And they did 3 times. So we packed up and we left.
Most investigators would stay and push harder, dig deeper, and demand more. But that's not how Thomas leads his teams.
We like to continue to move in kindness, and as much as we want to stay, there was a teaching there, right? There was a teaching in withholding, in patience, and moving forward when the time is right. Not when we want to, but when we should. And, holding back when we shouldn't.
It comes from his cultural teachings, which shape every investigation, every question in the dark, every decision about when to press forward and when to leave. And it is, he says, what makes the difference between people who encounter the spirit world with integrity and those who don't.
The way that we walk when we do this type of work is in kindness, it's with respect, and we want to make sure that all of our youth, they are older youth, we don't bring little kids, I should make that clear. All of these kids are at least 16 years of age. But I want to make sure that they all leave safely. So we do a debrief, and we do some things before everybody goes home. We leave things there. We don't take anything with us. We leave things there. And so we want to be able to go back, and we want to go back in a good way and in a safe way. And so we always communicate that as well, right? So maybe next time when we go back, they'll be expecting us again. They know we're going to come back.
In a field full of people who treat paranormal investigations as entertainment, like a carnival game where a prize is a good jump scare, Thomas Martell is teaching young people to be careful, to be respectful, to understand that the energy inside an old house is not a prop or a performance, that the people who lived, loved, and died inside those walls were real, and that how you approach them says something about who you are.
One of the other things that the youth get to learn from this is patience. Because, one of the things I've come to learn as an investigator is most of the time, by a large majority, most of the time you're not going to get anything, and then when you do get something, you have to be prepared to write that off as that's not paranormal, that's water moving through the pipes, or that's a mouse in the wall, or something like that. There are explanations for most things. So I really love when the youth come and they're full of skepticism. That's what I love to see, is the problem solving, like you just said, right? Where they're trying to, okay, we got something here, now let's figure out what it was. That's when the real, mysticism crawls in, is when it can't be explained.
Although his investigations have resulted in unexplained noises, sudden cold spots, and unusual readings on electronic equipment, none of these claims have produced conclusive evidence of a haunting. And that uncertainty may be what keeps the legend alive. The Cronquist House is, after all, a building filled with history. It has survived more than a century of Alberta winters. It's witnessed the triumphs and tragedies of one pioneering family. It escaped demolition and was moved across the river to begin a second life. Whether the sounds heard inside its hallways are ghosts, imagination, or simply the voice of an old house settling into the night remains unanswered. But when the wind rattles the windows and the footsteps seem to echo overhead, many visitors find themselves asking the same question: who or what is still walking through the Cronquist House? Thank you for joining me as we explore the Cronquist House in Red Deer, Alberta, and a special thank you to Thomas Martell, youth mentor, for taking the time to talk with me. I really do appreciate it. If you want to visit the Cronquist House or check out the Red Deer Native Friendship Society, I have linked both websites in the show notes. Do you have your own ghost story, paranormal encounter, or true crime? If yes, email it to me so that I can cover it and share with the listeners on this podcast. Email me through the website hauntedcanada.com. If this episode gave you the chills in the best possible way, please consider supporting this show by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. Every coffee helps to keep these stories coming, and if you want to go even deeper, stay tuned because I will be adding a Patreon very soon. Haunted Canada is sponsored by the Evan & Ghost Tours. I will link the website in the show notes. Haunted Canada is written and produced by me, Nadine Bailey, with senior producer Dila Velasquez. Production and sound design is by Rob Johnston with help from Corey Price. If you'd like to support this podcast, please follow, share, and tell a friend about this podcast. We'd also appreciate a like and a 5-star written review. And if you're on Spotify, tap follow. It helps more people find these Canadian ghost stories. Also, you can follow me on our different social media platforms, including TikTok and my YouTube channel, Haunted Canada. Hey everyone, got some exciting news. I'll be hosting a haunted and paranormal tour of Ireland in partnership with my friend Joanne at Expedia. We will be visiting haunted locations, staying in haunted castles, and exploring many historic places, all while delving into ghosts, haunting, and paranormal activity, so be sure to bring your EMF reader with you. All information is listed on the website hauntedcanada.com, and any questions, just email me. But remember, space is limited, so book early. Thank you again from all of us at Haunted Canada and Curious Cast. Have a good night, everyone, and stay haunted.